Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Superman issue 8 by Jason Aaron, Rafa Sandoval and Ulysses Areola. Superman's world gets a lot more complicated this issue as we finally catch up with Ra's al Ghul, leader of Lazarus, who currently is beating the brakes off some Omega Men assassins, nearly breaking a sweat as he continues to talk over the phone to his board members, the League of Shareholders, talking to them about record profits and their expansions into other countries. Right off the bat, Jason Aaron really sets his take of Ra's apart from the others, as what I said 2 issues ago, he's now the antithesis of what Ra's usually is. This is a corporate elite capitalist Ra's al Ghul, sucking all of the world's resources dry for profit. This opening also gives us a good look at him, and instead of being a slender older man like you usually see him, he's this beefy fighter, very reminiscent of Vandal Savage more than Ra's al Ghul, which I thought was really interesting. He's even sort of dressed like how Vandal would usually dress as well. Overall, it's a great design and I really like it. I can't wait to see him go toe-to-toe with Superman. Ra's tells the board of the assassin, hoping they will listen to him as he kills the Omega Men, and gets his answer through raucous applause. Ra's gives us a bit of an info dump in this section as we learn that he's in Metropolis and he made it a city of tomorrow that it is today, having led Lazarus for 200 years, and his goal is to resurrect the world. Now, my previous theory from 2 issues ago with Ra's maybe even being Jor-El is still tracking, as resurrecting the world is what Jor-El wanted to do Krypton, and this could be a Jor who, thanks to the amount of time he's been alive, like he could have, thanks to how space travel works and space-time works, he could have arrived on Earth in the past and, you know, built this company up over the many years he's been alive, and maybe that's like what's jaded him a little bit, and he's decided to take a more hammer than scalpel approach here to resurrecting the world to make sure what happened to Krypton does not happen again. Ra's takes down the Omega Men and pushes one into a Lazarus pit, activating its max power, which turns the assassin into a baby which Ra's then tosses from the balcony of his building, proclaiming that while it used to be called the Demon's Head, he's now going to be the God's Head. As he tosses the child off the building, he laments how he never actually had a son of his own, but it's something he's going to rectify very soon, and also kind of hints at the title of this little arc, which is called Son of the Demon, which I theorized in last issue. Is Superman somehow, or is Ra's gonna somehow, you know, make Superman his son? Or again, this goes into my theory that Ra's is actually Jor-El, and like, is this what they're going to call him now instead of, you know, last son of Krypton or anything like that? He's the son of the demon because Ra's is his father. Overall, this is a really cool character introduction, as well as it covers a lot of little details about the world and kind of fleshes out this absolute world, or at least, you know, Superman's little part of it very well. I love the pits also seem to be more science-based rather than magical. They feel very tied to Brainiac, and that might be just because they are purple in color as well, just like how the villain is. And I love how they can de-age someone to the point that they are a baby, and that's fucking wild. Like, we just saw Ra's al Ghul kill a baby here on the page. That's insane. Ra's looks out over Metropolis, signing off from his meeting with the League of Shareholders by telling them that Lazarus is hope. So I think how Ra's is set up here is going to be, maybe he's like the Lex Luthor to this Superman. You know, he's got the giant building in Metropolis that's purple, got a giant L on it, you know, it's looming over everything, including the Daily Planet. We actually get a shot of the Daily Planet here, which is quite cool. So I feel like that's the direction it's going, where they're positioning Ra's al Ghul as Superman's Lex in this world, and we haven't actually even seen what has become of Lex. Like, we don't even know if he even exists in this world. Meanwhile, in Smallville, Cal sneaks in to see the ailing Martha Kent in the assisted living home, telling her about his time in Svalbard and how it had nothing but polar bears and tall grass around him. He leaves some of the seashells he collected as Martha awakens, screaming at the intruder in her room, as thanks to her dementia, she doesn't actually recognize Cal or remember him, calling out for Jonathan for help. Cal gets scared and speeds out of the room, and man, I'm glad we really touched back on this story, since it was such a grim fate for the Kents. Hell, we don't actually even know what's happened to Jonathan, and since Aaron hasn't actually specifically mentioned whether he's died or he's elsewhere, I have a feeling that he's got a story in mind for Jonathan, and maybe we'll see that in a couple of issues, like what exactly drove the Kents into this world that they're in now. And I can kind of understand, you know, from, you know, the Martha point of view, her being in an assisted living home, it kind of makes sense. You know, Cal is this alien from a different world. He barely talked their language or understands their customs, so like he is not to like look after this woman. And then on top of that, he learned 2 issues ago he can't be around people he cares for because they'll just be used against him, like when the Peacemakers stormed the Kent farm. So of course it makes sense for him to I guess put her in this home, or just like stay away from her fully, so no one will come after her to get to him. It's extremely sad, but it also just makes so much sense. Cal heads into Smallville proper, where he's confronted by Jen and Lois, but he wants nothing to do with either of them. Lois tries to convince Cal that she is there on her her own accord and not part of Lazarus. She introduces herself properly, but her and Jimmy get into a fight since they both still technically are on opposing sides from each other. Their argument lets Cal slip away into the rooftops, but Lois knows that he's still listening, telling him that she has found all of these accidents and disasters in Smallville, and there was someone or something miraculously saving people from getting hurt by them. I loved Aaron has slowly rolled out Lois becoming a proper investigator and even like a journalist, since she's been journalizing all her stuff in her reports and trying to just like make sense of what's going on in Lazarus through her writing. She doesn't want to think what Lazarus tells her to think, and she doesn't want to follow their rules, and it's uncovered the real world for her for the first time in her life, so she wants to keep chasing those leads, pulling on those strings to see what happens. It's just really cool to see her take shape into the character I adore. We're not just kind of dropped in with a Lois already pre-established. Get to see her origins more or less here. Lois knows Cal came back to this place because of the Kent farm Lazarus took away from him, and since then he's been looking for a place to belong and for someone to trust, hoping that she can be that person for him. Jimmy pipes up and tries to show that Superman has come back to fight the people of Smallville and free them from their corporate overlords that Lois works for. Even Sol gets involved in the argument, trying to convince Cal that Lois and Jimmy are the perfect examples of this planet's angry and reactive attitude everyone seems to have, not wanting Cal to entertain their words. But Cal doesn't listen and confronts them both again, telling them that he is there because of Christopher Smith, since he murdered innocents in Pakistan. He came to Smallville in the hopes that it would stop him killing the man. Before Cal can properly reveal everything, he is shot in the chest by a kryptonite bullet. I love the idea that Cal is desperately trying to search for a reason not to kill Smith, but in a world so grim and desperate as the Absolute Universe, it's hard to find that hope and love and goodness. So he comes back to Smallville and the Kent farm in the hopes to find that hope and love that he felt even for just a moment back then when the Kents took him in. It would have been so easy to make him break down and decide to go against that rule and then later on find out about it, but I like that Aaron has consistently put Cal up against it, and every time Superman has met the challenge head on and just refuses to bend his own rules. He refuses to kill. As Cal is overcome by the kryptonite in his chest, Peacemaker fill the town streets. Lois and Jimmy turn on each other, but Lois tells Jimmy that they need to help Superman since it's the one common thing they have with each other and they cannot fail Superman. The Peacemakers find a blood trail on the street as Chris is finally revealed to us. Entire body now cybernetic and a mess of metal and cables. He tells the squad that if any of them touch Superman before him, he'll feed them their own gun. So I guess Smith did kind of become Metallo. He's not outrightly called Metallo, but he looks strikingly similar to Metallo, specifically the New 52 version with the cables sticking out of his head, albeit this version is a bit more purple. It's made by Brainiac. Chris activates his gun and he's able to track the bullet he shot Superman with as at the Lang family drugstore. Lois and Jimmy try and help Cal, unfamiliar with what he was shot with. Sol tries to remove the bullet, but he can't understand what it was he was shot either. However, he soon comes to the realization of what it is. As Lois and Jimmy continue to argue over who did this to Superman, Chris smashes into the building, throwing Superman around the town as he demands to know if the hero remembers now. I love that this is kind of like the thing that Chris is being driven by, the fact that Superman didn't remember him, or he thought Superman like viewed him as such like just an insignificant insect that he just couldn't even be bothered to remember his name, and that's why he like snapped and killed all those people. It kind of drove him crazy that this all-powerful alien just couldn't recognize him and his skills. So I like that Aaron has kept that intact throughout his little arc here, where he's become just a completely insane tool used by Lazarus. Cal fights back, but kryptonite continues to weaken him and his solar energy depletes. The way kryptonite affects Superman is just how I like it. It doesn't immediately take all of his powers or make it so he can't even move and get up and kind of cripples him more or less. It slowly weakens him and just kind of dulls his powers. He can still use them and he's still very strong, but he's not as strong as usual, which makes him vulnerable to attack. It's the perfect middle ground of making the hero weak when the story needs him to be, but not completely useless. Chris hits Superman over and over, telling Superman that he knows what Lazarus means now and he serves God. As he's attacked, Sol tells Cal that the bullet is irradiated remains of Krypton and they are being used to kill him. Lois and Jimmy try and get Chris to stop, but Peacemakers surround them, trying to arrest them. Lois actually tries to pull rank and have Chris arrested, but to complicate things further, the townsfolk of Smallville come out of the woodwork with their guns, demanding the Peacemakers get out of their town. Peacemakers want to take Superman alive and leave, but Chris refuses, which is when he's attacked by Superman when he's given an opening. Superman, now had a full battle armor created by Sol, tells him to stay away from Kansas. We caught a glimpse of this suit earlier on in the series when Lara used it back on Krypton, and I'm so glad it's back. I love the idea of a Superman gets power-ups from the suit he wears, since it just adds such a refreshing dynamic to his power set. And again, just like how I've said in the past, I love the idea of the cape being made of like crystals and little like nanite crystals that do stuff like here where it turns it into a whirlwind or a tornado that sweeps everyone up and gives him a chance to dish out a couple of punches to Chris. Things take a turn though as Chris realizes that he's being beaten, but instead of surrendering, he begins to gloat about people killed in the Pakistan village and how even after everything, Superman is still holding back. Chris fires on Superman again, hitting him twice with more kryptonite ammunition, which causes Sol to go offline and reboot. Chris gets a bit more mouthy as he reveals that Lazarus is run by Ra's al Ghul and he's their god, one who told him to murder a whole lot of people to bring life to the world. Superman still refuses to cross that line, and before Chris kills him, Brainiac shocks him, telling the man he's not to kill the Superman. Now I feel this moment could have gone just a step further, as obviously it's meant to show that Superman is being pushed to that edge where, he gets left with no other choice and is going to have to kill Chris. But here it felt like we were just one step back from that edge, like he should have been on the verge of delivering that final blow to Chris, and then Chris is shocked by Brainiac and knocked out, and it kind of breaks Superman out of that daze he would have been in when would have tried to have killed him. But here Superman is actually on the back foot. He's staring down the barrel of a kryptonite gun, so really wouldn't have had that chance to kill him. I get what Aaron is doing here, but as I said, it should just had that one extra step further, and then it would have made sense a bit more. Chris is knocked out cold by the electrocution delivered by Brainiac, giving Lois and Jimmy moments to decide what to do to Superman. Knowing that they can't get him to a hospital since they are all owned by Lazarus, Superman decides to turn to Jimmy for help, telling the Omega Man to get him out of there and to his people. And instead of arguing, Lois lets him go, knowing the Omega Men have a way to help Superman. Jimmy calls in to the Omega Men and they open a boom tube for him, bringing through reinforcements with Omega Primus, carry Superman to their med base, the portal, but stop Lois from coming with them as she's part of the enemy. Primus kills some Peacemakers as the portal closes, leaving Lois to be arrested by the remaining villains. Now this is a really interesting turn of events because it looked like the book was setting up that Lois will eventually turn from Lazarus and be there to help Superman when he needs it, setting up that romantic relationship and just the relationship in general with them. But I like how there's a swerve here when he kind of turns his back on Lois a little bit because she still is working for Lazarus after all she has seen. And I guess there's the idea that it's better to be in the know than out of the circle. She's working from the inside sort of thing. But I love the idea that he turned to Jimmy, Superman's pal, for help. It makes total sense, and it also is a organic way that we'll actually be able to get some Omega Men reveals in the next issue and learn a little bit more about the Omega Men, what their deal is, who Primus is. I imagine we're going to get a big reveal of who Primus is because they keep tying her back to Lois and her father, being that she was the one who crippled Sam Lane and Lois has a vendetta against her, so I imagine there's going to be something there. I'm really intrigued to see what Aaron has in store for us for the Omega Men. It's a real interesting way to take the characters, and I just really like that we've kind of diverted away from the usual Lois and Clark romantic relationship build up to Cal and him befriend Jimmy. Absolute Superman issue 8 really upped the action of the series as Superman gets his first taste of kryptonite in this universe. Aaron also begun touching on Superman's no-kill rule properly this issue, putting Superman in increasingly difficult situations that I feel are going to culminate in that moment where he has to make the hard choice not to kill ever. There's going to be that learning moment, and I appreciate Aaron is actually building up to that and giving it real time to breathe instead of just dumping it on us. On top of that, the reveals with Ra's al Ghul at the start of the issue and how he's more morally a corrupt mirror of the main universe, Raj, is so fucking cool. We got so many cool reveals about him, and I can't wait to see more of him in the coming issues. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite villains of this series. I'm going to give this issue a 9.5 out of 10.